We're all right. What's up, Crypto Paradise fam? It's Ian and Nick. We're back with another video, part of our interview series, our founder interview series. We're here with David, the founder of Yak Awesome RWA project. I'll let him introduce himself and his project in a second. Just want to start with a little disclaimer. We are investors in Yak We're actually advisors to Yak through our TDI, Decentralized Incubator Company. So we're long-term bullish on this project. We really love it. We really love it. We've known David for at least one or two, a couple of years now. So we wanted to bring him on. We think it's an absolute gem in the RWA space, super undervalued. One more thing I'll turn over to you guys. We invested in the seed round. We're up 6x on that investment, so done very well with Yak, and it's still incredibly undervalued. I think it has a lot of room to grow. Not financial advice, but this is a project we want to pay attention to. With that, David, if you could please introduce yourself, who you are, your journey in crypto, and we go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Ian. Great to be here. So my name is David, aka Chief Yak at Yak and my journey in crypto. I've been in the industry since 2017, mostly as a degen investor. So we can talk about some wins and failures on that side maybe later on. But I'm a serial entrepreneur. Been an entrepreneur since 2008. Started, I think, 8 or 9 different companies now. Yak being the latest. And so really got the bug to start something about 2 years ago. And that came out of another startup that we had called Camp Native that was acquired, which was a reservation, campground, and RV park booking engine and property management software that we developed. It was acquired by a private equity group. Through that process, I realized that these glamping is a term for glamorous camping or luxury camping resorts. And these style resorts were some of the highest yield, or they were the highest yield properties on our platform. But the other thing that I found is that they were exclusively owned and operated by multi-million-dollar investors or private equity funds. And so the idea of opening up a decentralized option for retail investors to gain exposure to one of the highest yield real estate assets in the world was super appealing. And that's really the mission behind Yak to open up this investment class to the 98% that don't have access to it today.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'll just real quick tell a story about how we got involved. So end of the last bull run, we had done pretty well for ourselves during the bull, obviously, and I was looking for alternative investments to park some of my gains, right? Real estate being sort of one of those logical choices. And so when David got introduced to us and sort of pitched the idea, I was like, wait, this is perfect. The highest yielding really real estate play you can think of with these glamping domes. And then you add that layer of decentralization, you add a community side to it, you add the DAO side to it, you add some unique token utility elements to it. This could really take off. This was pre-RWA hype. For those that don't know, RWA is some real world assets. So we went heavy on Yak early on. This was like 1 or 2 years ago. We invested in the domes, and it just turned out phenomenally well. And I still think it has a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to run. So that's my little background on the project. Why don't you tell us a bit more about the project in terms of the property, perhaps token utility, roadmap, things of that nature?
Sure. Yeah, so we were, as Ian said, we've been building, basically had the idea for this 2 years ago, almost to the day, I think April or May 2022, right about when Bitcoin was crashing hard at the end of the last bull cycle. So, not necessarily the greatest time to launch a crypto project, but actually it's worked out quite well in that I think, building in the real world, it enabled us to take some of those investors, like what Ian said, that had assets that saw an opportunity to go into real estate and pull that in. And we did that through an NFT collection originally. What the plan was, we were looking at other, I guess you could say, like RWAs that maybe pioneered it a bit, which is like LinksDAO was one we looked at really closely. and they were doing an NFT membership collection. What we quickly found out with that model is that there was some securities issues with NFTs tied to physical assets today. That might change in the future, but in the current landscape, that was going to be challenging. So we were able to sell or raise enough capital to acquire a property. We acquired the land in Brevard, North Carolina in October of 2022. We went down there with just basically my family, and built out the first 5 units, which was like last year, about a year ago now. And we were able to generate booking yield from the property. The first round of units were really like rustic meaning we had no utilities on the property. This is a bare piece of land. And so, it's, we built some decks and some glamping tents, and had an outhouse unit essentially. And we were still able to generate pretty decent interest and revenues off of that last fall. But we know, adding the amenities was critical. So that was why we launched the token, really opening up the opportunity for the retail investor to partake in this. And the way that works is the property, as it generates yield, 30% of those revenues are driven right back to the token via buybacks. And then those buybacks are allocated to either our staking pools or a burn, which right now we have that set up as 80% goes to funding future staking pools, and 20% to burn. So those are subject to DAO votes as how we allocate that in the future. But that's where we're at today. Token launched April 2nd. And yeah, we're looking at, marketing the token as you guys said, it's, the value. It's interesting if we were to compare like tangible assets value versus like blockchain. And I think we might be one of the only projects in the world that has like tangible assets value over $1 million and a token value that's under our tangible asset value today. So that's pretty wild. And I think there's a ton of room to run and grow as we just get exposure on the project and the opportunity for the retail investor here.
Yeah, and building off that, what interests me in Yak DAO is, like you said, you have this property where you don't have a mortgage. You did a pre-sale for this token, and all those funds are going towards development, putting domes, getting an outhouse, getting septic, getting water, getting a well, and all those are going to drive the revenues. With that revenue getting back to token buybacks and token burns, you have a deflationary token economy, and essentially the stakers of Yak DAO become a real estate owner. This is your way to get into properties that otherwise you have no chance of getting into. And most people can't even afford to buy a secondary house to do long-term rentals, much rather anything else. So you can have $100, you can have $1,000, you can have $10,000. You get the Yak tokens, you stake it, and you earn that passive income off a real property that doesn't have overhanging debt. And definitely you can get passive income off of that. And I think another thing that you didn't touch is the vision for Yak DAO isn't these funds for just this property. Once this property is fully allocated, I'll let you talk into how many domes can fit on the property and what revenue this property can bring. Then the next goal is, all right, where's property number 2? Where's property 3, 4, 5? And each of these properties remain on that same token utility, where 30% of the revenue from all the properties is going to go towards Yak's token buybacks and Yak's token burns. So your passive income grows with the growth of the Yak DAO. You get to vote on what you want the properties to do and whatnot, all at the same time that there is this deflationary token economic model. So this is why it interests me. It's real estate, bridging real estate investment in Web 2 to Web 3. You get the upside of the glamping real estate market. You get the upside of the crypto cycle that we know is coming. The bull cycle is right around the corner. And I think it's a recipe for massive growth for everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at like who we're competing directly with, we want to be an alternative to the traditional private equity real estate fund. These are multi-billion-dollar funds that are exclusive to accredited investors with, I think you have to have $2 million of liquid assets to participate in any of these types of funds. So for the majority of people that don't necessarily have that, Yak DAO is an alternative to that same investment type of class that has been exclusively owned by high net worth individuals. So that, to your point, Nick, building really like a DeFi real estate fund is what YakDAO is, to develop multiple properties. And then in addition to that, we have on our roadmap opening up an ability to do like revenue share with other property owners. So where we would develop units on community members' properties that meet the criteria that we're looking for. What's the criteria we're looking for? We're looking for great access to amazing outdoors adventures, really is what we want Yak to be focused on. And that might be, the beach in Mexico. It might be, the Pyrenees Mountains in Spain. It might be somewhere in like Croatia. Like these are all Kenya. These are all actual real places that we've had community members bring to us just in the past couple of months with opportunities to develop units on. So in the future, as the token really grows and provides us the ability to engage with more of those types of investments, that's the approach. So it really is like what YakDAO is it's like a crock pot, or maybe it's like a pressure cooker. That's a better way to think about it. Like it's kind of slow and steady, but once these like buybacks start happening consistently, it really is. And I think that's an interesting thing to talk about when you think about RWA and market narratives. So you think about how Bitcoin has historically driven the cycle. We're in like the fourth or fifth, whatever it is, Bitcoin halving cycle right now. And how RWAs, you're talking about like $16 trillion of assets coming on chain. That has a huge opportunity to change the game and the narrative and what we know and adoption. So like 94% of people still haven't invested in crypto ever. So RWA is about adoption. It's about like consistency and more like sustainable business models, I think.
Yeah, and you touched on it there that only 94% of people haven't invested in crypto. And I think, for a no coiner to become a coiner, YakDAO could be an interesting one, because it's like, all right, instead of a real estate investment that I can't get into, let's look at YakDAO real estate investment. Let me get the Yaks token. That's how I get the exposure, and maybe that's how we get that bridge. So I'm sure you guys are already working on how do you onboard no coiners into the YakDAO ecosystem, and how do you allow them to get that fiat on ramp. So I guess quickly before Ian asks his next question, you're talking about the vision of these other properties, and that's great. But I know some people be like, oh, that's just fantasy land. Although those are real community members, let's get back to the property you do own. So with those funds, if you max out this property as far as, domes and amenities, how many domes can you put on there? And what is the low end estimated, revenue that can be produced off of just this property? And then people can kind of quantify, the potential returns they could see with the buybacks and the burns and their staking overs.
Yeah, so property number one, each resort, we're modeling this after a very successful business model, which is about 25 to 30 units per resort. And those resorts yield or produce about $1.5 million of annual revenues. Your operating costs are extremely low on this, and you have basically a cleaning fee and maintenance on the property itself, and that's it. So when we look at sustainable buybacks from a fully operational property, it's going to be pushing like $500,000 of buy volume every year onto the token, and then you start multiplying that times multiple properties, and you can see where it ends up being like that snowball pressure cooker type effect, where you're really over time putting just tons of buy pressure, tons of opportunities for staking and rewarding long-term holders of the project in the future.
Yeah, I think anytime you're dealing with an RWA project, you need to be thinking a little bit longer term than perhaps your average crypto project. If it's tied to real estate, which is inherently a longer term play, in most cases, and certainly YakDAO is no exception, so you need to be thinking a little bit longer term. But one of the things I think people come to the Crypto Paradise channel for is just some insights and alpha as to why certain things happen the way they do in the crypto space. So I wanted to touch on something real quick. So if people go to the chart, if people look at the volumes, they might be a little disappointed. Obviously, the value of the David touched on the value of the properties higher than the market cap right now. So why might that be, right? Like if you're completely uninitiated, why might that be? Well, one of the reasons that I believe, and this is important for everyone to understand, the impact of a pre-sale. What's the good, bad, and ugly of doing a pre-sale, right? David already mentioned they needed to raise funds and did that via a token pre-sale, right? Including through a number of different launch pads, some very good ones, mind you, right? Ones that provide nice exposure, so on and so forth. But the reality is, the ugly side of that is, oftentimes those launchpad investors, pre-sale investors, they're looking for the next thing to invest in. They might have another opportunity coming up a few days from now, a week from now. And so they need to take the tokens that they purchased at the pre-sale from a Yak DAO, for example, sell them very quickly and flip that into the next investment opportunity. And that's the right to do that, obviously. But what ends up happening is in the early phases of project, usually shortly after a project launches, you might see a pump initially when that hype is there right around the time of the launch, if marketing was good and sufficient. But then you start to see the impact of the pre-salers selling their tokens, and that then affects the chart, and you sort of have a downward chart up until the time that you hope that those folks have sold out of their tokens, right? And then the buyer is able to come in at that low valuation. Maybe people find out about that project a little bit later on. They're interested. They believe in long-term vision, so they're able to buy it and reverse the chart, and then you can basically reverse from there. So I think that is kind of what you're seeing is really across the crypto space right now. Every project of pre-sale is kind of a similar looking chart. This is why you need to understand the impact of the token economics. When are those early stage investors fully vested, meaning all their tokens are unlocked and they presumably sold? And you understand what that means for the upside of the token, when you can expect a reversal, timing, and so on. So I just want to provide a little insight there. I know you guys have a relatively short vesting schedule, which was by design, right? I think it's 3 months or something like that, and the project launched about a month ago, if I'm not mistaken. So really only 2 months and more vesting. Maybe you can share some insights on that. But I really wanted to flag that for people because I want people in crypto paradise to understand the nuances of these things. Nothing is there's always an explanation for stuff, right? Yeah. You just have to understand what that is. So let's talk a little about the vesting, and then also what's coming up on the roadmap that can be a catalyst for a reversal here.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because the day we launched, we actually had our all-time high not on our launch day. It was a few days or like a week later, which is probably abnormal in itself. But we did like over 6x. Or I think it was like 5.5x for public sale. So that's like folks that went through the launch pad. That's at the all-time high price. And then, it's been like, as you see people gaining, like, they've got, so 35% of our token was released on day one. And then it's a daily vesting schedule for, I think it's 150 days, so it's about 5 months actually. But so each day we do see that, as you mentioned, Ian, where there's like those people that are basically vesting each day, and they're selling the token. So I think as a project founder, it's really interesting, especially an RWA project founder, because you have two markets to serve. And so that makes it maybe a little more challenging, in that it also makes it more sustainable in the long term. But in the short term, it does make it challenging because you're not investing all of the proceeds that you got at public sale into just token price, right? That's what most of the Web3 degen type investors that go through launch pads are looking for. They're looking for like you to dump tons of money into KOLs and marketing and just pump price. Ultimately, though, none of those people are like long-term believers, and so you do need to figure out some of the folks that come through Launchpad will be long-term believers, and that's great. But maybe it's like 80% of them, they'll sell all their tokens and they'll be gone to the next thing. So you do need to kind of get through that period before like you spend into the sellers, which is something that we're trying to be really, I would say, strategic about, like not wasting tons of resources into just enabling that group to continue to sell. So one of the things that you do is you try to lock up your supply, which we had a really successful staking launch. 25% of our circulated supply was locked. And then we have our seller tax pool right now has over like 10% of all of Yaks is in that seller pool right now as well. So if you look at that, like 35% of circulating supply is off the market today. So that gave us a little more confidence to start spending into the marketing, saying like, okay, we got a large percentage of like that 35% of what was released off the market. So now we feel more comfortable spending on marketing, which is exactly what we've done the past couple of days. And so we'll have quite a bit of impact from that hitting in the next week or two. And then what we're working on is really Nick mentioned this. YakDAO has the ability to bring in new like non-coiners. So that is a product that we're building right now, which is, we're going to call this product Mogul, and like a real estate mogul. And the idea is it's a referral-based marketing platform that is going to have a fiat to Yak's gateway so that individuals can purchase Yaks with a credit card. And that will be an absolute game changer. We've validated that the no coiner market is very interested in YakDAO. We did that through our seed round. I think it was over 25% of the private rounds were filled by individuals who had never invested in crypto before. So we already have validation of that market. Now it's just a matter of creating the mechanism to go out and appeal to that 94 percentile that has never bought crypto before, that wants access to real estate.
I love it. Nick, did you have any comments on sort of the market cycle of a new coin or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the token economics on this one are very short. It was front loaded at TGE. This is kind of a request of launch pads, but also done on purpose. Like David said, you want to rip that band-aid off. So here, you guys want to take the tokens, you want the 2x, you want the 3x, pat yourself on the back. We'll see you later. And then as heads get in beds over at the property, we're going to start to see that momentum of the buybacks and the burns and everything kicking off. The public round individuals have 90-day total vesting. And we're already almost 30 days through that with front-loaded TGE. So those public sale people probably already have 40 to 50% of their tokens, maybe 60%. So you hope some of them decide, all right, I already got all my capital back, so I'll stop selling. Or if they want to keep selling, they'll be out here in the next 2 months. And that coincidentally lines up perfectly with kind of the up season of YakDAO in the first property. Hopefully the amenities have been built out, all the permits are out, and we can get more heads and beds. The revenue starts coming in just as all the cheaters get out of their tokens, and then you start to see that rounded bottom. Whether that's new buyers coming in, which could happen through the Mogul program, whether that's new buyers coming in because the crypto bull market's here and they're looking for small cap gems, or whether that's just, hey, the believers are here, we don't have any new buy pressure, but guess what, we're creating that buy pressure from the revenues of this property, which is again going to have immense buy pressure and deflationary token economics, which helps YakDAO over time. So I think Yaks is set up here pretty good. And the market capitalization, fully diluted market capitalization, is larger than the property value, but we're talking about the circulating market capitalization lower than the property value. So in my eyes, it's a very low risk opportunity, because worst case scenario, you guys could sell out the property, give a pro-rata share to all the token holders, everybody's still in the profits due to that value, and you're good to go. So I like what I see for the token economics. I like this real world asset, this Web 2 business producing revenue and passing that on to token holders. I think that's the future of blockchain technology. I think Larry Fink sees that. That's why he wants real assets on blockchain technology. And I think that's how these bear markets kind of get muted for some of these assets that have real revenues, because regardless of what the market is doing, there's always going to be that buy pressure, always going to be those token burns, and always going to be looking for people looking for passive income, which a project like Yak Token can provide.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that synopsis there. Not financial advice as always, but wonderful insights, I think, all around. Before we end this interview, we have a sort of a new segment where we like to ask founders and other guests what some of their biggest wins, or what's their biggest win in crypto, and also what's their biggest loss in crypto, right? So, David, can you shed some light on some wins and losses that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, all right, so I'll take the low-hanging fruit one, which is like launching a project in crypto. That's a pretty big win, like to be able to do that, and with the assistance of TDI and Fair Network, being able to bring that to market over 2 years, that's a pretty big win. But if I'm going to go back to the degen trading days, so I traded in 2020. I was watching like the cash supply. I was watching, like, during COVID, how much money our government, the US government, was printing. And that got me pretty concerned, and I went really heavy into Bitcoin. And then I started trading it on leverage. And then I started trading it on quite a bit of leverage. And I turned $80,000 investment into $2.8 million in 6 months. And then I lost $2 million in one night on a leverage trade. So biggest win loss right there.
So there's your win and your loss. Leverage trading, highly risky, folks. It's not for the faint of heart. But one takeaway I have from that story is you looked at the macro situation, right? COVID hit, government printing money, lowering interest rates, money supply going up to combat the unemployment and so on from COVID. And that then becomes an opportunity for people investing in risk assets. So to me, it's like, that shows you did research, you have an understanding of the macro situation, a little bit of risk tolerance. Not everyone's going to be the same, right? Not everyone's risk tolerance is going to be trading 100x leverage, and that's fine. I don't even do that stuff, right? But that research, that understanding of the macro situation, I think that kind of thing is critical if you're going to be successful in industry at all. So I love that story. I hope you make it back and then some in Yak DAO. Maybe Nick, you have one more.
I said I think the second half of that story also too is something that you want to see in a founder in crypto. You guys see the front end, but you don't understand the back end and how much work goes into it, and complaints from community members and everybody investing they're investing too much in your project. If there's one down day, just how hectic it gets. And you watch 80,000 go to 2.4 million and back to 400,000, and weather that storm. Kept in crypto for this whole bear market, several more years launching a project. So I think that shows perseverance, and you're able to weather that storm. Crypto is a very volatile ecosystem. We see this in projects that we help launch, and people get burnt out very fast. And there can be burnout, and it's fine to have some burnout, but that burnout in crypto needs to be one weekend, and you got to get back on the grind, and you got to figure out how you can move forward and what you can do next. You can't sit around and wait in crypto, otherwise you become obsolete. There's thousands of projects, thousands of rug pulls, thousands of innovations in this space each and every day. So in order to have a long-term sustainable success, you need to find a way to produce revenue, you need to find a way to keep your community engaged, and you need to find a way to get people to believe in your project and believe in you. So you got to kind of be that front man and weather those storms with a smile, and always come up with the next idea.
Yeah, it's getting kicked as a founder. If you've met a founder who hasn't had some failures, then you've met a liar, not a real founder. So failure is just a part of the game, and it is about like being resilient. And even like on our launch, it was interesting how many people were like upset that it just wasn't continuing to go to $10 on launch day or something crazy like that, which sometimes crazy stuff like that happens, but we have a pretty traditional chart right now, and it's working through. It's interesting because the people that get upset are so short-term vision versus like the real believers in the project. So you start to really recognize that as a founder, and who is a real community member in this for the right reasons, understands the big picture, the vision, the opportunity, and then who's just in it for 20% short-term gain or whatever it is that they're shooting for.
Yeah, that's always gonna be the challenge, right? And I think over time, you sort of accumulate those strongholders. As long as you're getting out there, doing interviews like these, you're launching products, you're putting your face out there, putting yourself out there. Mogul's gonna be a big one. Developing property more, getting people on the site through Airbnb, generating those revenues, generating those buybacks. It's all gonna come into play here. But you're gonna have people who were a little bit more short term, and that's okay, right? So it's sort of balancing those things out. I want to leave it at that for today. Hopefully we have David on again in the future, maybe around the time of launch of the Mogul product, which I think is going to be very lucrative for anyone who wants to get involved with that. But before we jump, can you give us some info on where to find you, where to find your project, how to keep following you, how to keep following Yak DAO?
Yeah, so we're very active on X at the Yak DAO, and then our Telegram channel is the main Yak DAO official. As the main primary place for announcements, community engagement, etc. X, I mean, everything goes on X as well too. So follow us on X for sure. And then if you want to connect with me, I'm just at Chief Yak, both on Twitter and on Telegram. So would love to connect with right now we are seeking strategic partners in RWA. So if you're another RWA project, super interested to connect with you as a founder and talk about how we can collaborate.
I love that. Thank you for that, David. It was awesome having you on. Remember, folks, go find Yak DAO, subscribe to Crypto Paradise. Remember, we're giving away $500 every week. The first payout's going to go out today, I believe, because it's Friday. And at the end of every month, we're giving away 2 free nights to the beach in Tulum. And with that, guys, we will see you on the beach. Peace.